hello, 1980 wants its trade show back.
The goal isn't to live forever. The goal is to create something that will.
Welcome to Perspective, the podcast for wedding creatives, where we sit down, often with a special guest, and talk about our many years of experience in the wedding industry. Today, we are doing our very first remote podcast. We have Lisa Devlin not in the studio today, but we'll be talking to her about the importance of growing as a photographer. Of course, we'll be getting to Lisa's backstory and why she created Photography Farm. However, our aim in today's episode is to encourage you to constantly be looking at where you can improve in photography and business. Today's episode is sponsored by With Jack, but we'll get on to that a little bit later in the show. In the meantime, Greg, what are we drinking on today's episode?
Well, this is obviously the first one that we've done remote.
Whoop,
so
whoop.
Here in the Cinemate office, we've got The Barn, which is a roastery from Berlin. And we went to Laboratorio Espresso in Glasgow to get this.
We did.
Especially for the name,
That's
Barn.
Right. The Barn. Because if you don't know, Lisa's online educational resource is called The Barn. So, I like the play on words.
Yeah. So that's what we've got here. But what have you got, Lisa?
Yes, you're so fancy. I'm not a coffee drinker. Got to be honest, my husband is. So I just have a big old cup of tea on the go. But I always drink Earl Grey. So that's slightly fancy.
Yeah. That's okay. We'll let you off with that.
Yeah. We're not going to judge you too harshly. Don't worry.
I thought you were going to say we're going to have a gin or something. So we start with what we're drinking. I'm like, it's only 10 o'clock in the morning.
Well, to be honest, we have done that in the past. So it's not beyond us.
So obviously it's a quieter time of year for us wedding folk, but what have you been up to? How's your weekend been? Is it? Yes.
Oh, it's never quiet, never. Because obviously when it's slightly less weddings, then Photography Farm takes over for me. So I don't really have an official kind of quiet zone, I'm afraid. Maybe there's like 1 week in November. I don't even know. But yeah, so I never feel that. In fact, I shot a wedding last Saturday. I shot an elopement in between going to a couple of trade showy things and a social for photographers. So, I'd like to say that I am in my quiet season and catching up on all things like blogging and accounts, but it's not. It's carnage here. It always is.
Yeah. Well, I feel like this weekend's been pretty carnage for...
Yeah.
Well.
So, like, recently for us, there's been a lot less shoots. So we've not been out shooting, but we're still sort of editing through some of the edit queue, starting to sort of see the end of that before next season, as they say, starts.
Yeah.
But it's been a sort of big social weekend for us. Well, say social.
Social? I've been antisocial.
Simon got laser eye treatment on Friday.
Oh, that explains the Stevie Wonder glasses.
Oh, you saw
I thought
them.
you were just being cool.
Yeah, I honestly, I've had a hellish week. The consistent pain and the utter boredom. Because I mean, you forget how often you use your eyes. So yeah, I'm still in recovery mode. But this has been the first day I've been able to get out of the house. So
okay,
thank you.
Do you think
so
it's going to be worth it?
Oh, I think so.
I'm tempted. I'm getting to the point where I need my glasses more and more, and I'm just like, oh, it'd be so much easier if I didn't have to. Yeah.
Well, there's loads of different types of procedures that you can get. So yeah, I think I went for the most invasive though. So my
just go for it.
And I'm literally beforehand I was like totally blind.
You were Stevie Wonder.
Yeah, pretty much. I was like -7 and -7.5 in each eye, and I had astigmatism. So I was complete. I mean, really, I really shouldn't be working with cameras if I'm that blind. But you need
binoculars, not cameras.
I don't know. Maybe that's why I work so good sometimes.
It makes it experimental.
Yeah, that's all in now. That blurry, not quite got a subject in the frame. That's huge this year.
Yeah. Yeah. And what have you done this weekend, Greg? Since I haven't seen you.
I was down in London for my cousin's 30th birthday. They did a surprise party. So it all went well. It was a well-planned surprise. He had no idea.
Oh,
very cool.
I've never had a surprise party. Must be nice. I've thrown a few. I know. I think there was a thread in Farmers started by, I think maybe it was Neil a little while back saying, I have never ... And I just keep thinking of things like, oh yeah, I've never had a surprise party.
Oh, hear that, everyone? She hasn't had a surprise party. Maybe this year can be the year that someone arranges for you to have a surprise party.
Sadly, my husband never listens to anything like this. He never bothers. No, he's not interested.
Well.
But yeah, okay.
It was worth a try.
Leave that out there for the universe.
So, for the listeners out there, who is Lisa Devlin?
Okay. Well, so I guess like a lot of your listeners might know me from Photography Farm. That's the kind of people that I'm thinking you've got as an audience. So I am a wedding photographer and I run my own school for wedding photographers. So those are the two main hats that I don. And I've been a wedding photographer for forever. Basically, longer than anybody else that you know. And Photography Farm started in about 2010, 2011. So that's been going for a while as well. So yeah, like I said, they both keep me insanely busy.
I can imagine. Yeah.
Yes, but it's good. It's all good. I think it's been an interesting, there's lots of things going on in the industry and it's an incredibly creative and dynamic time to be involved in it. So I'm really still enjoying it. So as long as I keep enjoying it, I'll keep going. As long as people keep booking me or keep turning up to farm, we'll keep going.
Yeah.
Which one do you prefer to do? Is that am I allowed to ask that? Probably not. I probably shouldn't ask that question.
Choose one of your children. I wouldn't at this stage, you can never say never, but at this stage I don't want to give up either because they feed into each other so well. I don't think I can be a good educator without still being a working photographer.
Yeah.
And also when because Farm is very admin driven and I never set out to be an events organizer. That's not my natural forte either. So sometimes when Farm feels very admin driven, then it's just lovely to be going, and simply shooting a wedding and that's all I need to do. So I think at the minute they're both on a par. Like I do love doing both and it's very different. And then, of course, I get a lot of photography farmers who come and help me shoot weddings, and that's really nice. And I think that's an extension of educating people. So, at the minute, it's really hand in hand. Obviously, when it comes to accounts, they're separated. But apart from that, they flow. So I think I'm going to try this year, because I've been working a lot on my productivity. Because I think I'm a natural born faffer. I just get really distracted and inefficient. Yeah, I think you either are or you're not, and I'm just not. And I get frustrated because I'm not as productive as I'd like to be. So I've been working a lot with a productivity. I can't even say the word. Productivity manager. And looking at maybe separating my days in the week sort of more formally to, sort of Monday and Tuesday is wedding photography day, or Thursday and Friday are farm days. I don't know, because at the minute it feels like 7 days a week is work.
Yeah. I tried to do that with sort of blocking my time and days, but I start off for a week or two and then it just disappears into chaos.
Yeah,
so I like to have a good plan of, I'm going to do that, but not good at sticking to it.
I know, but this is it. But I think a lot of being creative is you are quite a chaotic, maybe, creativity is driven by that. So it's interesting when you do work with people who are non-creatives coming into your business and they look in the back end of your website or come across and look at something, even your accounts, and they're horrified. But you're like, but it makes sense to me.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
so what is your system?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, every year I ask Greg that. What's our system, Greg? I don't really. What am I doing?
It's okay. I know what I'm doing.
So he's more on the efficiency side of things. and I'm more of the I'm doing whatever I'm doing until Greg tells me otherwise.
Creative director. Well, this is it. I mean, this is it. I think, in the industry, the duos are the way forward. They are the future. I would love to have a partner in business that was here to pick up the slack, to, just on the bad days, to be the person that you bounce off, to, be, the person that you go to the pub at the end of a hard day, that kind of thing. I think duos, you're really lucky to have someone to work with, especially, I imagine with video, there's a heck of a lot of editing to do. So just all that side of it. Does one of you do the editing, or do you do it together, or how do you separate that out?
It's split. So is most of this of organizational and setup stuff I do, and then I hand over that session to Simon, and he does the creative.
Yeah. So pretty much you do all the boring stuff.
Pretty much.
Like the syncing of the audio in the video, and then sometimes you drag in some music that they like, and
nice.
It's a good balance, and it works well.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Because numbers aren't for me. Like, if we're being serious, no one should let me run a business. That's kind of it, really. But yay.
We mentioned that obviously you've been shooting for a long time. What got you into photography at the start?
Yeah, when it wasn't cool to be a wedding photographer.
Well, see, when I first was a photographer, I did music, so that was cool. That's always been cool. So I kind of I went straight from school because I grew up in Northern Ireland, and I came over to Brighton to go to the art college to do the foundation. So when you go to art college, they don't just let you go straight into picking what career you want or what degree you want to do. You have to do a year of trying everything just in case. And it's actually a great idea, because I went into it thinking I'd do interior design or textile design, something like that.
Okay.
And I came out the other end of my year thinking, I have honestly no idea what I want to do. And so I just, I felt really overwhelmed, and I was only really young and moving away from home. I was really homesick and everything. And the whole year overwhelmed me, and I couldn't find my place at all. And so I applied to do fashion and textiles just because they said, do that because your work is quite textural. But photography was always in the background for me. Always, literally. I cannot remember not owning a camera. My dad always bought me little, do you remember those little, you won't remember this, you were youngsters, but there used to be these little disc cameras that you got, and they were like in a square, and they made a circle of teeny tiny little negatives. I think you got like 15 on a,
I do remember those, yeah.
I remember having a disc camera. I remember having like a little Polaroid that made tiny stickers. I just always had different cameras. And then when I was 18, my parents clubbed together and bought me an SLR. So when I moved to art college, I still had a camera, still taking a lot of pictures, but I always felt I'm not technically minded, and I am still not technically minded. So I always felt like I really enjoyed photography and had it as part of being a creative, but that I would never get the hang of the technical side. So I never put myself forward to do photography. And I didn't do a photography degree at the time at my art college. So it was always just something that I just didn't enjoy and never considered that I was good at. So in the summer after I finished college, just to keep a hand in, I did a course at the same college just to get access to the dark room. And it was a night class that you just paid for. And the guy who taught it was working advertising photographer. And he's the first person that ever said to me, you really have got an eye, you've got a talent for photography. And I was like, yeah, but I could just never get the hang of the technical stuff. And he's like, you can learn that. It's just numbers and you will pick it up. And he said, but nobody can learn that eye for light and composition, and it's a gut thing. And he said, you have it in bucket loads and you should be a photographer. So it would honestly never occurred to me before. And I was like, oh, photographer could be cool. So I said to him, should I, I'll apply to do a photography degree. And, he gave me the best bit of business advice I ever had. And he was like, nobody will ever ask you if you have a degree in photography. He said, just what kind of photographer could you be if you could be any at all. Like there was no restriction, don't think in your mind, oh, I couldn't do it because. And I was like, well, I'd be really cool to be a music photographer, like traveling all over the world and meeting rock stars. And he was like, do that. And I was like, yeah, I'll just do that. And,
just like that.
Yeah, just do that then. But it kind of was that easy. He said, don't bother with a degree unless you want to teach photography. Just get your ass to London and start making contacts, doing work experience, and just get your face about and make real life connections with people, and it will come. Mm-hmm. And it possibly simplifying it. It was hard work, but it did all come. And it was exactly what I did. I got my ass to London and I started to make connections, the very tentative sort of connections I had with people in the music industry. I jumped on. I offered services for free. I turned up. I make a hell of a good cup of tea. I'm really good at kind of being intuitive to what the photographer needs or the client needs. And I did about sort of 2 years of work experience for other music industry photographers, and then one of the guys I was working for took me under his wing and made me his second photographer. So I'd kind of worked my way up from like his fourth or fifth photographer. So he's like a really big rock photographer to being his. He'd never even had a second photographer before he only had assistants. So he was sending me to jobs within 2 years. So where I would still have been in my degree, I was actually traveling and shooting people, all over the world and building a really strong portfolio. Mm-hmm. And then, a year after that, I got an agent and spent the next 10 years working as a music industry photographer. So it was really cool. Do you know what? I've got a hell of a lot of good stories when we go down the pub. And it was such an incredible education in being a photographer because, and this I talk to people these days who come into photography in the last 10 years and they can't comprehend this, but we had to shoot everything on transparency. Medium format transparency was industry accepted. So all of my work was on transparency. So there was no opportunity to fix anything after you take a picture. So you have to be a really accurate, really precise photographer because what was printed was what you took in the camera at the time. It's crazy for me to think now how much, how free we can be with taking our images. But for 10 years, that was the majority of my work. So it made me a very accurate photographer. And, in the end, I did get the hang of all the technical stuff.
Yeah. So do you think learning back when, you didn't have digital, you didn't have room to take like hundreds of pictures, do you think that kind of mindset has served you well? Like moving forward, like, I can get my composition right, I can get what I need to get in like 1 or 2 shots and have it be right? Or
it is very different. So obviously when I learned every single picture that you took, so when I was in this process of teaching myself to be a photographer or being on work experience and trying to replicate something that I saw in a magazine or one of the photographers I was working for did, there was a huge financial implication for every single image that you took. So it wasn't this snap. So you weren't willy-nilly about it. I had a notebook and I wrote down all of my exposures because, of course, when you get transparency or film back, it doesn't tell you what your exposure was. There's no, data in the background.
Yeah.
So, I have a little, exactly, no metadata. So we had, I'd have a little notebook and I'd write down every single shot and write down what I shot it at and then, learn how to shoot in different lights, learn how to compose, how to do like blur images, how to mix different sources of light, and just you just had to, by the cost of it all, you had to really make every shot mean that you were learning something. So it's just different now. If I came to it now and had a digital camera, it's interesting. It's a very different way of learning. One of my daughter's friends has just got a DSLR and wants to learn. And so sort of teaching her from the ground up is quite an interesting process because, they are just so used to taking pictures on their phones and editing it and fixing it and making, even at 13 years old, they're putting filters on to smooth their skin.
Oh, yeah. No. Oh, goodness.
Yeah. I know. Yeah. So it's very different. I am glad I had that background for sure, and it serves me well. I am a very accurate photographer.
Is that a cat?
Yeah, that's just a random tail.
I just saw the tail. I was like,
wave across the screen. Yeah, she's got a little bed to sit in here, but she prefers to sit on my my Wacom, or sit on top of the Drobo. It's nice and warm.
Nice and warm.
Away underneath her.
Keeping your wedding safe.
Here she goes again.
I only ask because I'm not.
Old lady.
I can't fully see yet, so that was quite strange.
No.
Like, what is
cat-shaped blur?
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, see, now she's pressed something on my computer. Okay, we're back. Technical hitch. Feline technical hitch.
Yeah. With regards to like wedding photography, what have you seen change in the industry or in photography since you've started? Because there's been a lot of changes, even in the last sort of 2-3 years.
Yeah. I mean, like I said to you, it's an incredibly creative and dynamic time in the industry. So, it's hugely interesting. I shot my first wedding in 2000, and it was the girl who was my agent was getting married. And it's funny for me. I used to say I would never be a wedding photographer. You know, I remember being at a dinner party and, talking to somebody I didn't know, and they said, "Oh, photography. Oh, do you shoot weddings?" And I was like, "No, just shot Eric Clapton." Being really offended that somebody would assume I was a wedding photographer, like it was, considered like the lowest genre. So in 2000, when I shot her wedding, I said to her, I'm not going to shoot it like a wedding photographer. I'm just going to shoot it like it's an editorial job that I'm just, having to record your day as a story for a magazine.
Yeah.
And that's the only way I can think of to do it. But, I will still do family photos and formal portraits, but most of it, that's what I'm going to do. So, I feel personally I haven't changed from that in all this time, but the industry's caught up because in 2000, it was all, it was a very male-dominated industry. It was very staid. It was very static. Your photography you received as a couple was very formal. And I feel like a lot of it was still medium format. So cameras were on tripods. And then 35mm came into it, and documentary, kind of candid, I suppose reportage became the word.
Yes.
And whatever that means to people, but it meant shifting onto 35mm, and so the photography became cheaper and more dynamic, and so covered more of the day. So that was the kind of initial big change. And then of course around about 2008-9, digital started to become the really big thing in our industry. And then the changes that digital photography brought in meant, yes, really, really long coverage. So people getting much more of a story from their day and much more into the party than they ever did before. And then, of course, any big changes in cameras, I think, brings new waves of creativity. And that's one of the things I love about our industry. So I didn't initially switch to digital when Canon brought out the 5D.
Yeah,
I was going to ask. Did you go straight in there, or were you? I remember a lot of people were hesitant.
Yeah, because the images were not. It wasn't great in low light. It wasn't great on color balance. There was a lot of noise. You did get a lot of dust on the sensor. For me, it wasn't an improvement on shooting on film. And also, for me personally, I had very young kids, so I just didn't have time to learn digital. So I was saying to people, they'd get in touch and they said, this became the first sentence you heard from any potential client was, can I get all the images on a CD? And I was like, well, no, because I shoot on film because the quality is so much better. And, just like, bye. So I had a couple of kind of years of doing that, and my actual business diminished a little bit, So I was suddenly I didn't really have to do any work. I had an advert in Yellow Pages. I did 1 or 2 wedding fairs. I always did, real life kind of networking. That always worked well for me. So I'd be recommended by planners and cake makers. And, I always got recommended by my previous couples. And I just never had to hustle. It was honestly so easy.
Yeah.
And I didn't have to sit here with Lightroom open all week either. So I had a cushy time of it for the first 10 years of shooting weddings. And so when the digital, I was like, I don't want to be sitting editing. I don't want. So I was very reluctant, and I just couldn't feel the the decent, the quality of the images to me didn't look as good. So I waited. And when the 5D Mark II came out and I tried it, and I was like, now the things that annoy me about film are the things that this camera does really well. So switching color balance, working in lower light. And of course I had to listen to my clients. If they were all saying we want digital images, I had to keep up. I had to relearn photography and become a digital wedding photographer. So I switched, I think I was quite late. I think it was 2010. So it wasn't a super long time ago that I switched to digital.
So when you moved from analog to digital, you obviously had that extra processing on your end. So how did you initially deal with all that extra workload? Or did you just not have a choice? You had to sacrifice your time?
Well, initially I did sacrifice time, but I was also incredibly busy. And I don't enjoy editing. I just don't. Don't. I want to be out. I want to be out taking pretty pictures. I want to be in coffee shops, meeting my friends. I want to have a life. I don't want to be a slave to Lightroom.
Yeah. Don't do video.
I want to. Okay, I'll avoid the video then. So I outsourced my editing when I was a busier wedding photographer. So I was shooting sort of 40, 45 weddings a year. And I just trained someone up to edit for me. And I've got 2 Macs, and she'd come in and she'd do all of the culling and editing. And then I don't shoot quite so many weddings now. I shoot between sort of 15 and 20. So it's more manageable. And because I hate it so much, I'm actually a really efficient editor. I'm really fast.
Yeah.
And like I said, I don't overshoot in the first place. So I'm not having a huge amount. I cull and edit at the same time. I don't do a cull and then edit. I just do it all at once in one blitz. And so normally the images are ready a few days after the wedding, but I wait. I wait a few weeks to deliver. So, that they've got a little bit of a gap and time to look forward to getting them and to kind of justify my fees.
Yeah.
But I hate doing it so much. So I just crack on, get it done, get it out of the way. And I hate that feeling of not having edited the last wedding before I'm, shooting the next one. I like it all delivered and done, or safely online in a couple of places. So that's my kind of thought process on that. And there are ways of doing it. Lightroom is, when you first come into it, can feel really overwhelming. Because when I first got into digital, I used the Mac version, Aperture.
I loved Aperture, and then they didn't. They stopped it, and I was like, "Oh my god, what do I do with all my lovely organized photographs?" Nothing.
I know. I'm so annoyed. I'm so annoyed. It's funny. I'm just revamping our online education thing at the minute, the barn. And initially we had a workflow in Aperture and a workflow in Lightroom because I was still using Aperture. And it was so much simpler than Lightroom. Just a really simple, logical, like workflow.
Yeah.
I know. Annoying.
I've still got the old Aperture box. I don't know why I keep it, but just to remember the good days when things were simpler in my closet. So, I feel the same. So I was reluctant to come into Lightroom, I have to say. But, you can make it work really well for you. And I think there's just a lot of things. I feel like Adobe does this, that there are 2 or 3 ways to do everything. And it's just not necessary. I don't need 2 or 3 ways of doing it. I just need one that works really well and is really obvious. We have a lot of people who come to Photography Farm who never, ever have used Photoshop and never think they're going to, because it is so overwhelming. Oh, yeah.
It's such a huge application. So they just avoid it. So they're trying to do everything in Lightroom now. And you can do most things. But yeah, I've got quite an efficient workflow. And that suits me fine. So I try to free up as much time as I can. But yeah, I'd merrily donate the whole thing to somebody else. But at the minute, it's like, I can't justify it when I only do 15 to 20 weddings.
Yeah. I suppose you don't want to be spending all your time editing because you've got a family, you've got relationships to keep up, and I think this is something that I'm definitely going to have to nail down is speeding up my edit, because we do overshoot, I would say. So my editing time is pretty lengthy, and the video in general is, I would say, lengthier to do, but I think this year I'm going to try and master my end of being efficient like that. So Yeah. We'll see.
Yes.
We'll see how that goes.
It's an ever ongoing quest.
Yes.
I think a lot of this of overshooting comes from, like, most of the time, like with photography, it's new photographers that come in and they have that FOMO. They're like, I need to shoot everything and get it. And then they don't realize they can just step back and wait for the moment. Yeah. And that's where education helps. It's like, all right, I'm allowed to just take a minute and just assess the situation.
Yeah. You might be out of win, but you don't need to be shooting all the time.
Yeah,
I know. I've noticed that with sort of second shooters that I've got, and I don't shoot very much in a ceremony because it's really distracting for the couple, and nothing happens.
Yeah.
You've got key moments. You got obviously bride coming in, groom's reaction. If a dad is giving her away, and then it's a lot of just standing and talking or singing if it's church, and there's not a lot visually going on. There's a lot to do with audio, but it all looks the same. And when they say their vows, sometimes I've had second photographers and they're like, shoot, and I'm giving the evil eye, don't shoot, because it doesn't translate to a still image. And there's just no need, and it's just a whole load more editing you're going to have to do. So it's like looking out for key moments and just waiting for them. Just take a couple of those other things. You don't need to, and just little tricks that people don't know about, even when you're shooting groups. To count your groups in, so you're not getting blinkers. It's the easiest thing in the world, you just count each group in. I shot a hell of a lot of boy bands in my time, so I know how to shoot groups. And it saves you a hell of a lot at the back end. So I'm always thinking of that, because I've come from having that freedom of not having to sit here editing all week. So I'm always looking at ways to cut down on what I'm going to have to be doing in the office, instead of thinking, I'll fix that later. Well, I could just shoot more efficiently.
With Jack was designed from the ground up and is tailored specifically for creatives. Whether you provide a service like design, development or photography, or offer advice to clients, With Jack is for you. It's focused on creatives. Insurance shouldn't be complicated, so With Jack has made every step easy. You'll deal with one form and talk to one Jack as you sign up, get covered, and move on with your day. With Jack is all about bespoke insurance for creatives. Simple. That doesn't mean more forms or faff, it means less. It's not about endless features and stale service. It's about one solid policy and the personal touch. Bye-bye unnecessary fuss. Hello, creative friendly insurance. Be a confident creative.
Photo Farm has been going for what?
Yes.
Close to 10 years now. Is this the 9th year, did you say?
I started to do workshops in 2010 in my house, and then we did the first photography farm in 2011, sort of in September 2011. That's when we first hired the farm, the place that is our spiritual home, I suppose, which is, really beautiful. And I'm trying to think of ways to get back to. So we need to return to farm. But so we became a photography farm in September 2011. And it's just sort of grown year on year, from a really small residential workshop that took like kind of 10 attendees at a time to now we do a couple of bigger events over the year. So in a few weeks, we've got Farm Shop coming up, which we're doing in London and in Glasgow. And the idea with Farm Shop is that it feels like a workshop. So I noticed there was, in between me doing my first workshop in 2010 and now, there is a hell of a lot of wedding photography workshops that you can attend, which is great, of course, but why would people come to ours? So what I thought nobody was doing was taking a group of these internationally renowned, top of their game kind of photographers and getting them into a room at one time where they would teach a complete workshop. So it's not individual talks. They lead a section each that completes together as a workshop. So if you were looking to either revamp your business or you were relatively new and you were looking to have guidance into how to set up your business and how to shoot and how to manage your workflow and how to get clients and all of those things, that's all covered at Farm Shop, but from people at the top of their game. And we encourage them to teach a section that's their strength.
Yeah.
And then the next day they can go out in a small group and actually shoot with these guys and see how they pose and direct a couple, how they deal with light. So that was the idea. So this is our 4th year, I think, or 4th time of coming up to Scotland with it. And yeah, so it's in a few weeks, and I think it's a great format. I think it's intense. It's a you've been there. It is a very intense couple of days. But I feel it's really good value for money for that. There's I all my speakers, I'm always like, when I talk to them about what they're putting in the presentations, is it all killer? I don't want any filler. All killer, no filler. We haven't got time. These people have invested in us, and we want them to go away making actionable changes in their business that will make them more efficient, make them more creative, and make them more money. So that's the idea. It's a very complete workshop with people very much at the top of the game. So we get, this year we've got Ferjurista from Mexico, who is, just phenomenal.
Yeah, he's a magician.
He is so, I look at his work and I don't know what his thought process is. And I feel he very much works in isolation. He's not looking at what everybody else is doing. Everybody else is looking at him.
Yep. And they can't keep up.
No, exactly. It doesn't matter if you copy one of his pictures, because he's already 10 streets ahead of you. So, great innovator and such a nice man. And he makes a lot of time for his personal life and his family. So you can be at that level. He's got 100,000 followers on Instagram. The DMs he gets must be insane.
Yeah, it must be.
Yeah. I mean, I've got admin status on all of their Facebook accounts, so while we do some marketing. And every single day the messages come, I don't read any of them, but it's like notification after notification of people trying to get his attention.
Yeah.
And he's great. He's such a lovely man and incredibly patient. So, and I've seen him speak. I don't know if you've ever seen him speak, but it blew my mind. I think that there's one thing, like, you can go and watch a photographer talk about their work and you just go away thinking, well, that was, not necessarily inspiring, maybe overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could never be that, like, I'm not going to shoot that kind of client. I'm not going to shoot in that kind of venue or location or country. And it can be a little bit depressing. You can go home and look at, and think, well, I'm actually shooting at a golf club next week and in, rainy, like, Birkenhead or something. I don't know. And, the comparison can really kill your creativity. So, but when I saw Fur, what you're seeing in the frame is so not related to what was there in the first place. The way he frames and he gets the elements down to just 2 or 3 key elements and brings something out. There was a picture that he shot that I had seen, and I was like, this guy is shooting at such a level. They're going to the Sahara for their portraits. It was like really crazy. Look, they're walking down like a dune. The light was amazing, and the couple really glamorous. And he shows you the pulled out shot in his talk, and it was a garage roof.
What?
It was like a crappy old garage roof. It was like, what, so that, I think that's incredibly valuable when you go to one of these educational events or conferences, to walk away thinking, actually, if I'm clever with my framing or my mindset or the light, where I'm shooting can be elevated and can, become greater than it looks in real life. So I think that ever since that, I've been like, I've got to get him to farm. I've got to get him to farm.
Yeah. And this is the year.
Yes.
This is it.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Super exciting.
I am. And then our other, the others that are coming as well, they've all got something to bring to the table that's equally as valuable. I think Jennifer's so hot on business. She actually came last year, so you saw her.
She was great.
So clever.
Like her self-portraits blew my mind. So good.
I know. So good. And just all of her personal projects and how that leads into her main work. So I don't know if you saw a wedding she shot recently. It's all black and white, and it's very there's a portrait of the bride in the morning sitting on a chair in underwear, in white lacy underwear. And it sounds like a really provocative image, but it's sexy, but not in I feel like it's been shot for women. It's it's more like an editorial, like a fashion picture than anything boudoir-y or, like a man would be, I feel like really impressed by. I think it's a very feminine picture. And so how she, I can, having spent some time with her, I can see that, she's thinking cinematically, she's thinking of stories, and she's applying this to her wedding work and getting the kind of client that will get involved with the creative process with her. So I think her work is really exciting right now. And the other one coming back to us is Jim Pollard, who, so do you follow Jim?
We didn't see his, I don't think we were at the year he was there previously.
No, I don't think
so looking forward to meeting him.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, he is great. He's another one that the way he thinks, he's a fantastic educator. He came from teaching people how to snowboard into wedding photography. So
really?
Yes, that's his background. So he's got a lot of, he's very invested in teaching methods, and that's why I've asked him back, because, I just don't want people that are just going to stand up and say, here's my work, aren't I amazing? And thank you and good night. So I'm excited about that. And then new ones. So Freudist, have you followed Freudist? Have you listened to we had our podcast a couple of weeks ago, and she's based in Norway. And she's a Nikon ambassador, and she's another one like me who's been a photographer for a super long time. So he's seen a lot of changes in the industry, and top of her game, really is top of the game right now. So really pleased that she said yes, and then our homegrown talent. So I feel like I'm incredibly good at predicting who's on the way up, and so we've got two duos, because like I said, the duos are the way forward. Duos are the future. So we've got the Crawleys and the Lawsons, who've both won. So they've won, the Crawleys have won UK Wedding Photographer of the Year, and the Lawsons have won UK Videographers of the Year. So I was like, I knew it. I could spot talent.
Predicted
it. Totally predicted that. So I chose well. So I've not met either yet, but obviously big fans of their work. The Crawleys, so Liam's going to do some stuff to do with family portraits, not just weddings.
Oh, right.
Cool.
And then and then the Lawsons I've asked them because I wanted someone who was doing videography, but who photographers could relate to.
Yeah.
So they've really made that transition really well, and incredibly booked up, in the first year of being videographers. So they still do both, but I think that's going to be really interesting to learn from them how they've transitioned and how they've set up those two businesses to run alongside each other. So,
yeah. We actually worked with them way back in like 2009 or 10. So I'm looking forward to meeting them again and catching up.
Yeah, no, it'll be good. It's funny. We were asked. We're friends with an Aberdeen photographer called Emma Lawson, and we were shooting a wedding, and she asked us if we were like, jealous of the Lawsons because they were really great photographers, and then was it the first year they moved to video?
Yeah.
They were started winning awards. I'm like, nah, man. Their game is so on point. Like, I'm so happy for them because their work is great, and it's cool.
They sound lovely, but you're right, Simon. The whole thing, it is a game, and I think that's what people don't understand. It's like, for all of us, there's no point that you reach that you can just sit back and think that's all going to roll in. Like every single one of us, like whatever level you're at, you're always having to play the game. And it's funny because I've seen so many photographers now kind of come and go, and people who were really hot and now actually don't even work in the industry anymore, because very few people do a big announcement, I'm going to go, that's it, I'm leaving. You just suddenly think, whatever happened to them? And you go to their account and it's not there anymore, and you're like, oh, they've obviously completely given up now, after winning such a, so it is, I think that constant being on your game thing is an interesting side of what we have to do. You need some awards, you two.
Maybe we do, I don't know. We've never aspired to aim to get an award, but I don't know, maybe one day. Who knows? Maybe we're just not good enough. We'll get there. As
long as you have the love for it still, because it is, I've seen so many people lose that, and then it becomes just hard work. But I think as long as you have the love, and when you wake up on a day that you're shooting and you're not like, oh God, I'm just looking forward to this being over. Once you start to feel like that, then maybe it is time to do something else. But if you wake up and you're just like, excited and nervous, like I never, even a 2-hour elopement shoot, I'll never just think it's a breeze. I will still be really nervous. I'll triple check what train I need to get. I just really, really take a while to settle. Once I'm at the kind of final venue, then I'm like, okay, the nerves can kind of slow down a little bit now, because I still get really, really nervous. And then, and I just worry like that I won't be able to do a good job for them. And, so all of that, like, I think it's all part of, the adrenaline and the love for it and the excitement and, looking forward, like can't wait to upload and see what I've got. Really excited about sneak peeking this picture, all that kind of thing. If you've got all of that, then all that other hard work is doable. But if you don't have that core love for this, then it's actually, I think it's quite a thankless job in terms of effort that we have to put in, because people who see the guests and the couple, they see you turn up and shoot a wedding and they're conscious that maybe you've been paid a lot of money and they're just like, God, you just wandering around with cameras at a social event, like they see, they're drinking, they're having a really nice time. So you're also in that, having a nice time. You just happen to be there with a camera. and honestly, people, they do not see any of all the stuff behind it. So I think it feels like a relatively thankless job at times compared to what we all know, which is, how much you have to put into your marketing, how much you have to put into social media, how you have to keep on top of all of these things. And then, of course, your workflow and your editing and then the physicalities of shooting, that as well. You can never have a sick day, can never have a bad day. You can't bring your bad mood to the office. Nobody's going to pick up the slack for you. You always have to be on. You always have to have the best day of your life as well. And so I think as long as you still love it, you can still keep an industry, in a place in the industry. But yeah, I've seen people, you just tell that they're in groups moaning all the time. It's like,
yes, social media brings out the worst in people, I would say. That's where we see the moaning behind those private Facebook groups. But yeah, you got to keep that love.
Yeah, it's good. If you've got stress, good to get it off your chest for sure. We've all got to have outlets. But I think if this, I do remember the kind of grumpy old man, the grumpy old photographer who's always moaning about the newbies or the weekend warriors, and it's like if that's all you're doing is moaning.
Wait, are we talking about Neil Thomas Douglas? What's kidding.
I've had a word. Like the ratio of moaning to joy. You need to. So yeah. Do you need to pick up your camera? Does this spark joy? And I think it still does, but it's all the other stuff for people like Neil that it just is. There's a lot of other stuff to deal with, isn't there?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Has education always been like a passion for you and like wanting to help people to improve? Is that something that was an inspiration for Farm?
No. Never occurred to me, never. I've always had like second photographers and always quite enjoyed having somebody under my wing. But no, it never occurred to me. The only reason I ever did it in the first place was, so I talk about when I, was hardly any bookings and I'd realised that I was not, nobody really knew who I was and all the bookings that I had, I wasn't looking forward to, like, I wasn't like, wow, that's going to be an incredible wedding. There's nothing wrong with anyone's wedding. But for me, the ideal client, they just have to be passionate about photography. They just have to be excited about what we're going to create together and looking forward to getting their pictures and not like just you get a cake and a car and all these photographer, you just tick the box. And I was definitely in that. I was getting that's how my jobs were going. So I did have a really big audit of everything and I did completely start fresh and I completely changed my business and how I presented myself and I embraced digital and I embraced an online life. And for me, I'd been going for 10 years. I also thought, okay, I need, if I worked in a bank for 10 years, I'd have something. I'd have a promotion. I'd have a clock or a watch. I don't know. They'd give me something. So I was like, the equivalent for us is that we do enter awards. So we talk about awards quite a lot, don't we? So I entered, the first time I ever entered an award, I entered an award for the British Journal of Photography. And I thought, I'll get on their radar. Maybe at some point I'll win, or I'll at the very least kind of learn what it feels like to enter a contest and what the thought processes are. But I bloody won. Couldn't believe it. Yeah. And with that came this deluge, absolute huge deluge of emails, because my profile had risen. So, other photographers getting in touch with me, and then other places in the industry getting in touch with me, and talks and sponsorship and things like that. So I started to have, I guess, a profile in the industry. And it was literally taking me to kind of lunchtime to go through my inbox and answer all the questions I was getting in the morning. And I was like, do you know what? Like, is this a good idea if I put all this in some sort of information that we sat in a room and talked about it all together? Would people come? And people were like, yes, because in 2010, there wasn't a shitload of workshops that you could go to. So I literally did them in my house, and people came, and that's how I started. And I thought, I really enjoy this. Like, social, the social aspect, I always learned things, and I still do whenever we do anything to do with education. So I think it very much feeds back into my own creativity. I just really enjoy it. But no, I never had a burning passion to do it. I don't even know if I'm very good at it, but I think I like when you see like little kind of light bulb moments in people that you've got into the room, and afterwards they're like, oh, that made such a difference to me. And for me, Photography Farm has been such an unexpected, an incredible thing to be a part of. And I feel very lucky that's happened for me. I didn't even start the Facebook group. That was the first people that attended our residential workshop, and I asked to be invited in.
Wow.
Yeah, that wasn't my idea.
It must be really inspiring though, when like all the pressure building up to Farm Shop, the events, and then once it's over, the feedback and seeing some of the attendees going and changing their work and improving, it must be really inspiring to start planning the next one.
Exactly. So I think every time we do something, I'm just like, I spend a whole day in a dark room going, never again, because they're exhausting.
Yeah,
they're
I can
so
imagine.
Exhausting, and they're so nuts, and there's so much work. But then, the day after that, I'll get in touch with Gillian, and I'll be like, so what are we doing next time? And that's how, and that this year, the other thing I thought, well, there's so many kind of conferencey things around now, like I feel like, I became a wedding photographer, and then everyone became a wedding photographer. I feel like I did a wedding photography workshop, and then everyone did a wedding photography workshop. I feel like I did a conference, and then everyone's doing a kind of conferencey camp gathering, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, nobody's doing a trade show really well. Trade shows suck in our industry. They utterly suck. Have you ever been to one?
Once. Can't remember what it was.
So which one?
Yeah.
It was across the river. Can't even remember.
Mm-hmm.
It was just tech everywhere. I was like, oh, cool. All right.
Yeah.
That's it. Boring.
Yeah, just lots of gear, and just for a creative industry, you'd think we would do a really good trade show. And so for kind of years, I've been going to them because I've done talks at them, or Photography Farm. We had a stand at some, a couple of them, trying to reach a new audience, and gave it a go. But just kept coming home going, God, these are just so frustrating. For Farm, we had at the NEC, our stand was next to some company that did holidays for photographers, where you basically went to, I don't know, Cyprus or somewhere, and took pictures of girls in bikinis. And on the stand, they had a poor girl in, the depths of winter standing there in a bikini all day in the freezing cold NEC to advertise their services. And it's like, why is this? It's hello, 1980 wants its trade show back. So, and I would see like people coming back into Photography Farm group afterwards saying, oh, I went to the show, and I went, I shoot in duo, and I'm the main photographer. I'm a girl, and my partner, shoots with me, but these companies would talk to him instead of me, and or just being really, the whole Nikon thing. Do you remember that a few years ago, where all the ambassadors were male? It's frustrating because for our end of the industry, I feel we're on this quite creative side of it all. And that all of that doesn't appeal. So what we've ended up with is the mentality of like, you maybe go to one, or you've maybe heard about them and you just wouldn't go, but actually you're missing out on, connecting with these companies, because the same people who say, oh, trade shows, I wouldn't go to one, they're all awful. And then you see them in groups saying, oh, does anyone know where I can get this style of album? Or, oh, it'd be really nice to go and try a new camera system. Where can I do that? At a trade show. and there's a load of free education at trade shows. They can be really good if you can get over a lot of the old-fashioned stuff. So I kept coming home and saying, God, it's so frustrating. Why does nobody do this? Like, well, there's a gap. Somebody needs to do one. And I kept saying it. And I was just like, all right, I'll be that somebody. I'll put a trade show on and just do one that's, progressive and just respectful and just not awful. And you will not have a girl in a bikini to advertise anything.
If you want, Greg can wear a bikini. I don't think that's not better.
I look forward to seeing that, Greg.
No.
I'm kidding. How just, I guess, not really related to anything, but how does the wedding industry changed in terms of like sexism and that sort of things throughout the years? Because I feel like weddings have always been pushed towards more the women, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Has there been a dominance in like women photographers or male photographers, or what's? I
think my personal experience is that it just goes in circles, because when I first got into it, people would be surprised when I was at a wedding that I could operate a camera. And, I had several comments. I think at one point I even had a guy who had an eye patch on tell me, oh, that'll never come out. Your flash isn't on. And my second photographer said to him, you've only got one eye and you're trying to tell her how to take a picture. I used to get a lot of well-intended tips from guests at weddings, like, oh, you're shooting into the sun, that'll never come out, all that kind of thing. And help with, oh, it looks good over here, you could show, so that's a lot of, well, let's say it, men offering to help me at my job, which was very kind of them. But yeah, I know what you mean. I think I think in 2012, I went to WPPI in Las Vegas, and I feel like all the big key speakers were women. So people like Elizabeth Messina, like Jasmine Starr. I feel it was a very, there was a girl called Jessica Clare. I feel like women were very dominant, and I feel like men are now. When I go to look at, setting a lineup for any events, I seem to be booking men first. And, that is just the way things go. They one goes up, one goes down, one goes back up. I also feel like, at the minute there is a lot of really strong women coming back up. But I used to always be most inspired by other female photographers, and right now I feel incredibly inspired by a lot of male photographers. The first two speakers that I've booked for Farmers Market in October are men. And I personally just don't think there's anything wrong with that. Of course, I'll redress the balance. And of course, I'm also going to now be talking to women. But I find it, as a woman, I find it interesting that I can relate to a man shooting something as emotional as a wedding, because I do think they do it very differently to us. And I do find that really interesting and fascinating. But there's room for all of us. I think it's a really interesting time. And I personally just love these really creative photographers and are probably way more technically minded than me. So I find that something like, if I don't understand it, I want to know more about it. And those are the people I want to hear. I want to sit and listen to them talk about their work.
Well, look, don't worry about the technical aspect, because there's always a one-eyed pirate, correcting every decision that you make. So don't worry about it. It's fine.
I know.
You've sort of touched on it already, but when you're putting a lineup together, what sort of elements are you looking for? Is it you mentioned the topics are quite important. Does like follower count and big name appeal, does that have a draw as well?
Yeah, funny, I was talking I think this has been a really big topic this week, hasn't it? Did you watch the Fire Island documentary?
Yes, I've watched that.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you've got to watch it.
Damn eye surgery.
You have to watch it, because talk about like a modern morality tale. It's insanely interesting. But yeah, basically the guy spunked all his money on Instagram influencers to make his event look really phenomenal, and had no money left to put the actual event on.
Yeah.
And I did sort of feel there's a lot of things, when you're organising an event, you're selling something that doesn't exist yet. And so people are investing in you and believe that you will produce this thing, but actually you haven't produced it yet. So with Farm, I'd never have gone straight into doing something like a trade show with 40 stands or Farm Shop where we have 100 attendees. I'd never have gone straight into that. I've built my way up and I've made a lot of mistakes and learned a lot of lessons along the way. But yeah, this guy was just, I'm going to put on a $30 million, like music festival on an island that has absolutely no resources in place already.
What is his motivation for doing this?
Dollar bills.
Money. I mean, interestingly, it wasn't, the music festival wasn't the main thing. It was all part of an app. It was meant to be an app that you could book artists through. And they had a huge team all working on this app. And so the festival was like a kind of thing to promote it, and was like a side thing. You've got to watch it. It was just absolutely insane. But yeah, so we're talking about, sorry, I've gone completely off track. We're talking about numbers, social media numbers. Yeah. And there's also somebody has drawn my attention to an app that you can use to gauge if people have bought followers or not. Because we're always sort of cautious when you look at photographers and they've got an awful lot of followers. Is it true? And certainly you can tell sometimes just by their engagement that they probably don't have that many genuine followers. But also, isn't it interesting that people feel the need to? We do. I mean, I personally don't have big social media numbers, but I have decent engagement. And so it's funny because I've had conversations with brands that I've been working with for Farm, who up to this point have just been, happy to get involved. And now suddenly they're like, well, your numbers are much lower than we think they should be. And I'm just like, well, it is what it is. But the engagement's good, and
so judgmental. These companies.
I know, but I sort of seen from the other side. For me, I do look at them, obviously, and I do need people with bigger numbers to help us grow.
Yeah, of course.
But it's not the be all and end all for me. So, for instance, the Lawsons, I think 1,000 followers on Instagram, something like that. You put 1,000 people in a room, that's a lot of people. Yeah. But in terms of modern day social media numbers in our industry, that isn't huge at all. So as videographers, yes, I could have picked somebody with a much bigger, but people do business with people, and that's what it was. So do I find things I can relate to them as people, and I think we're kind of on a backlash now from those big social media numbers for anything. It's almost going to get to the point where you need to be ashamed of your huge following.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a funny. I feel like that conversation is really all over the place at the minute in all industries. My daughter wanted to watch a show last night where they put a load of people on an island in bikinis, and they compete to stay in. It's a reality thing. So one of the girls introduces herself and she's like, hi, I'm a social media influencer. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's your job. That's what you do. And brands give me things to promote. Okay. I don't know. I feel like across the board, it's a very interesting time and place with social media.
I feel horrible, but when I hear that, I there's part of me that gets a little bit judgy, as if it's not a real job. How awful is that? That's my first thought. I know a few Instagram influencers here in Glasgow. It's bad that's my first thought. So I'm sorry.
I know, but see, there's people like, do you know that girl, Forever Betty?
Oh yeah, she's great.
Oh my God, I love her.
Yeah.
Everything she does, I love her so much.
Yeah.
But it's like, I do look at what she wears, but it's like, she's such an interesting personality. And then I just love the way she sees Glasgow.
Yes. I look around this city and I'm like, where is all the orange that she's getting? How is she doing this?
I know. She has this gift for like being drawn to, the orange. And, she did a post this week about the underground changing. I didn't realise your little underground system was changing. And I was like, oh, that's really sad because it's so cute.
Are they changing the colours?
Is it changing? I don't know.
It's all been modernised, apparently. But I think she's great. Like someone like that, is just great because she just is a really interesting character and personality, and a big social media following is almost accidental. But I just love everything that she does.
Yeah, this is going to sound weird, but my favourite thing of hers was a top that she adjusted out of like a large second-hand male t-shirt or something, and she put it around her body in a certain way, and I was like, damn, you are creative. That is just I would, like, if that was my shirt, I would have just thrown it away, but you've refashioned it and turned it into something that looks baller. It was very impressive, I have to say. Anyway, by the by.
Yeah, I feel people like that, like Instagram is just, the perfect platform for people like that. Because when you think about it from the user experience, like when you pick up your phone and you scroll through Instagram, whether you're looking at the feed or at stories, why are you there? We're there because we're bored and we want to be, our attention grab. We want to be entertained. We want to be cheered up. Like the amount of times I pick up my phone where I'm just in a bit of a funk and I'm like, ugh. And then you pick it up and it's like people either moan or, bigging up themselves, and it's really joyless.
Yeah.
But, someone like that, and you're just like, she never, like, she just always cheers me up. It's so interesting and bright, and there's a lot of people like that you can kind of follow. And so I think as photographers or videographers, you lose track of this. Why are people picking up and looking at Instagram? We're all, I feel, from conversations and from what people say they want to learn about, they're like, I want to learn how to grow my numbers, and it's like, it doesn't matter if you have 10,000 or 100,000 or 1,000 followers. How many weddings do you want to book in? You want to book in 25 weddings or 40 weddings, so you don't need 100,000 followers. They're not going to book you. So what are you trying to sell? Well, we're trying to probably sell ourselves as wedding photographers. And, I think they go into it because, yes, they want to see your work, but they want to see behind the scenes and personality. I think we've lost that. Even stories started as that. And now, everybody's stories are like, these are going to be on my latest blog post, or, this is my latest work. And I'm like, oh, if I want to see that, I'll look at your website. I will look at the main feed. When I look at stories, I want to see you walking your dog. I want to see you having a Gregg sausage roll. I want to see what you do in the day. I don't... I want to see like Kat Rock and Roll Bride. I think she's very good on her stories, so it's very personal, her stories. It's not perfection at all. She has a very genuine, very engaged following, and it just because she just is like that. Like she'll just literally pick up the phone and post something and not put a load of thought into it, not be really strategic about it. Glasses on, no makeup, and, the cats or the house or whatever it is, it's just really genuine. So, it's worth bearing in mind. But social media numbers.
I think that's another part of going to events that I like, is that some people can look at the lineup and be like, oh, wow, this big name with such and such numbers, and they idolize them. But then you go to the event, and you get to meet the people, and you just socialize with them. I love that sort of community element to events.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, totally.
Yeah. I don't think they're all like that, but farm is, we're not massive. None of our events are huge. And so, it flows like that. It just is easy. And I feel like, having done it for a while now, that I talk to a lot of people who go to these things all the time. So someone like Mark Bakura, he's great. He's my go-to guy when I start to plan anything, because he goes to every conference in Europe. And he sees it from, as a speaker or an attendee or a sponsor. So he knows what's good and what's not. So, when I'm looking for all that killer content, he knows who delivers it. And so, and I also want to have people who get involved. So you could start a chat with them either at the event or in the group afterwards, because, you know, they're all in the group. Everyone's scared of them. Nobody's talking to them. But, you know, they are all in there. And hopefully after we run Farm Shop in a few weeks, people will feel a lot more like they can just chat to them.
Yeah.
Because, also, you know, I feel the same. I really look up to a lot of photographers, and sometimes when you meet them, you know, you're just like so in awe of them. And I think it's funny because I think of these guys going and shooting weddings, and people at weddings don't treat them like that, you know?
Yeah.
We put them on stages. And, you know, when I saw... there was footage, so Jose Villas just shot Nick Jonas's wedding, and you know, the guy's got, I don't know, 25 million followers or something, and there was some footage of her walking down the aisle. Did you see it? And she had this veil on that took 12 people to carry down the veil. It was so massive. And
it's the biggest veil I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
Oh, it was phenomenal. It was very, God. I mean, imagine filming that, you know, how cinematic.
Yeah.
But, you know, you can see Jose running backwards, you know, taking the pictures of her. And, you know, he's just a jobbing, working photographer. Nobody's like, oh my God, it's Jose Villa. You know, you just, same as all of us, busting your ass shooting weddings, you know?
Yeah.
Sweating, walking backwards, doing the walking backwards photographer walk.
Yes.
You know, it's just the same. So it is. It's hard work. So I feel like whatever we kind of do at workshops and conferences, you know, relating it back to them just being a guy working at a wedding, you know, a girl just being spoken to by a guy with one eye telling you how to take a picture.
Yeah, we're all doing the same job.
Yeah. That's what I love about Farm. It is. And, you know, there's much to learn. Like, we get a lot of times people saying, oh, I'm brand new. Will I get anything from it? Should I come? Or is it all going to be really advanced for me? And I'm like, no, because we will learn from you. You know, when you're brand new, like you don't have the bad habits that we have. You're not lazy in some of the ways that we are. I find it really inspiring to hang out with new photographers at any time. And I just think, you know, if you, it's a really funny. I was thinking about this morning when I was walking my dog and thinking what we were going to chat about today. And there's no obvious route into being a wedding photographer or videographer. You know, there's no courses offered at university. There is generic photography ones, but they're almost a hindrance to becoming a working photographer because they concentrate on the really highbrow stuff and they don't teach you how to operate a camera. So almost everyone I've interviewed for the Farm podcast is the same as me. You know, I shot a friend's wedding. I tumbled into it. I became a kind of accidental wedding photographer. You know, we don't... other careers are not the same. You don't, oh, well, you know, I was poking around my friend's mouth one day and decided I could be a dentist. I was, you know, just kind of drawing a picture, you know, I was just looking outside of a house and thinking how nice the roof was. So I thought I'll be an architect. Yeah. You know, you don't. There's something about wedding photography where people are just like, oh, I quite fancy that. I'll do it.
Yeah.
And get some cameras. But almost everybody has done this accidental path into it and just done it and thought, that's really good fun. Yeah. And kind of learned on the job, you know?
Yeah. Like we followed...
Just start shooting.
We actually followed a similar path to you. Not quite as rock and roll, but we studied music technology. And then I shot my cousin's sister's wedding in France. And while doing that, we were sort of stumbled across a guy called Joe Simon from America. And then we're like, oh wait, we could do something creative in wedding films. Like it doesn't have to be the boring thing that people expected.
Wedding films can actually look cool.
So then we started thinking, all right, we'll give this a go.
Yeah. And then when I got married, I was trying to look for someone to make me a cool wedding film. And I was like, man, there's no one around here. And I didn't have the budget to fly a fancy American cinematographer over. So it was after I got married that we were like, maybe there's a wee gap in the market
just stumbled into it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, the films for weddings this last year or so, I haven't seen anyone have a normal wedding video. It's all like big production. It looks like it's Hollywood. It's really cinematic. It's like two who came to farm. He writes a script. He works on it. He storyboards with them. He's
on a different level.
Yeah, that is next level. That really is.
It is.
Yeah,
it is. It is. Did you see? Do you know who Lara Jade is? The fashion photographer. So she's a British fashion photographer, but she's really big in New York, and she does a lot of education as well. She's lovely, but she got married last year, and her video, it's really moody. It's like them standing in some ferns, and it's all like, really, and I just think like, what do people's grannies make of these videos? Like, why are you not smiling?
Yeah, I've always wondered the same thing. It was quite trendy for a while to put like ferns over your face. Like, I'm like, I can't see your face, darling. What's going on here? The photographer's not very good. I've always wondered what the older generations think about these new video trends and stuff. So
but it's incredibly exciting. It is really, I think film this last year or so has been just massively inspiring to see, and of course, we didn't used to be able to share it so well on social media, and now all our social media platforms loves videos. You'll get prioritized over all of us.
Yeah, I mean, you still got the advantage on like being featured on blogs and stuff. Maybe one day we'll get a little bit higher level, but social media's been pretty kind to video so far, so that's good. And I should say that for our listeners out there who aren't photographers but are videographers, filmmakers, sorry. Photography Farm is great. Even though it's not focused on video, but like you said, like last year when you started pulling some video characters out, I was it was really inspiring, actually.
Well, I just became conscious that a lot of our photographers were dabbling with video and interested in it. And then I just did get like inquiries and people like you guys saying, if I came, would the content be relevant to me? And I thought about it. I thought, because we do, work really hard on things like business and marketing and directing couples. And so I was just like, I think videographers would really get a lot out of this. And just how you use social media, all that kind of thing is relevant to all of us. So we do, after that, and that worked, I thought, well, I'll consciously put that element in each time, and it's not a dominant part of it, but definitely that you will come and you will get plenty out of it as videographers. And then when it comes to the trade show, so I'll be actively seeking some nice big names in videography now as well, because I want that to be known as a because of course the photo and videography shows, it's the same. The video ones are still dated and not doing a good trade show either. So we want to have a really good place for people to come. So it's interesting for me. Personally, I was a photographer. I'm not interested in doing both because I can barely cope with one. But as an educator, I can see how valuable it is and the way forward. And if I had another person, that's what I would be encouraging them to do fusion. I do think it's fascinating. And of course, that it was inevitable when the camera, when the 5D Mark II came out, fusion was inevitable. And so anything in this industry, embrace it and go with it. And it's an exciting time. I feel like probably videography has got a lot more the speed at which it's developing this year is faster than photography right now. There's a lot of really clever people going into it and using social media really well, and just making really beautiful work. Oh, did you see the film the Kitcheners did?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was obviously going to be amazing, but they lived up to what people were expecting.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. They're just so good. They're so good. They always turn me down. We got them to farm once.
Yes. It was, we're trying to get him on the podcast as well.
Yeah, I've spoke to Dylan about coming on here, and he said he doesn't normally do this sort of thing. But we might get him soon.
Yeah. They're my faves. They're my favourites. They're just so and they're so lovely as well. They're really good fun. But yeah, they just do their don't they? They don't get involved in all of this
Keep
kind of thing.
Keep themselves to themselves.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One day I'll get you back, Dylan.
Well, with that in mind, is there anyone that you'd really want to have on your photography farm roster that you haven't had yet, just out of interest?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Is there anyone that you're trying to aim at? Can you tell us?
Oh,
Can you hint?
there's people that people turn me down all the time, but I would really love to get Nirav Patel.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I know, but he just doesn't do anything. None of us can get him. No, it's not like he's doing anything. He's not. He just doesn't want to. He's really quiet.
We've heard
he
that.
He just doesn't. Yeah, but his work's so beautiful. I've tried Jasmine Star a few times for the business side and for social media. I think she's one clever girl. I think she's a very dynamic speaker, and I've tried her a few times. So last time she turned me down. I think it was her assistant who turned me down last time.
Ouch, yeah. Well, her YouTube channel was like shooting right up there. I mean, content that she
I have a lot of admiration for what she does. I think she's very, very clever.
Yeah.
There's a few. There's a lot of times it's just that it doesn't work out with timing. So someone like Fur, it was always not this time, and I just keep going back. Somebody else that I have been trying to get, I have got for market, so I'm really pleased about that. I'm probably not going to announce it yet.
Okay,
no problem.
But he's British. He's got a big Instagram following. He does shoot weddings. Probably if you saw that film The Kitcheners did, you could probably figure out who it was.
Yeah. Okay.
I like the teasers.
I don't even want to hazard any names just in case we get it right. We'll keep it secret. We'll keep it secret. But yeah. Any cinematographers that you've got in mind, or are you still open?
Yes. Yeah? There is one that I am going to approach. I'm going to approach probably this week. So I've literally booked those two kind of big names, and that's it. And then other things behind the scenes have been taken over. So we're currently taking the farm's online education system across to a whole new platform. And
Very
of course,
cool.
that's not been that would be lovely if it was just like bish bash bosh, but of course it's not like that.
Yeah. Are you going to refilm all those videos that you did?
100 videos? No.
Okay. I was wondering, because that is a mammoth task.
No, I know. I'd love to, but the content's the same. The content's the same. All the basics of Lightroom are the same. The basics of shooting are the same. All that stuff hasn't changed. Just our branding has changed.
Yeah.
So the existing content, it's all been just ordered and some old stuff going and a bit of branding refresh and stuff like that. But no, that's all coming across.
Nice.
But I am working on some new content. So we're going to film some new content and that's going to be looking at. So I'm trying to feel like for me right now, what things do I keep getting asked and what things am I working on? And the whole DSLR to mirrorless thing, I feel is a big conversation in our industry. I don't know about you guys on the video side, but for me, people just, so many people, ever since I put on my social media shots of me with the Sony, they're like, are you switching to Sony? Are you switching to Sony? And it's been quite a long process for me, because I don't remember, but they came to Farm Shop last year. I'd never had the camera in my paw before, and I spoke to them and they said, would you ever consider switching to Sony? And I was like, nah. I'm really happy with my Canons. I don't see the advantage. I cannot be asked to learn a whole new system. So I was initially like, no. But never say never, because I just really like the guys behind the company. 25 years of shooting Canon, I've never met one single person from Canon.
It's crazy that.
I've never, in all the things, all the trade shows, everything that I've done, I've never had a conversation with anyone at Canon. Canon don't care about me, so why do I care so much about Canon? So Sony was like, like I said, people do business with people. So first of all, I really like the people behind it. They're just really, they're not pushy salesmen. They're just really passionate. They're all photographers themselves. We go for a drink after the trade show finished, and everything for the farm has been done because I did it in a pub or a hotel bar. We chat. So that's how we do business at Farm.
Yeah.
So first of all, I really liked the people. But even then, you know, I put that camera in my hand and I was like, I don't know how to work this thing. This is, nothing's where I think it should be. And there's too many buttons. There's just too many choices. I just want to change my ISO, my aperture, my shutter speed. I don't know what a frame rate is. I don't care. So I was like still really reluctant. But yeah, now I'm like, I feel like everybody wants to talk to me about it. I went to a couple of events last weekend. That's like, how are you finding it? And I think a lot of girls are finding that a lot of the stuff around it, or any mirrorless at the minute, is very technically based. And so we may be looking at filming some content which is just like, why even bother? What's the advantage with mirrorless? Like, if you just don't know, why even bother? Why would anybody sell their old system and move across? And then look at the ways of changing and how you can, you don't have to be all or nothing straight away. And look at some of the advantages and then look at kind of some of how to use it. And stop thinking of using your mirrorless as a replacement DSLR, because they are different beasts. So it's like getting into the mindset of using it to its advantages instead of trying to make it like your old camera.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're filming some new content with that, and just going back to some more our roots. So looking at just literally shooting. So going back to this 52-week project, the project's been designed to challenge you with the things you feel uncomfortable with to do with photography. That's why we started with the self-portrait.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then just looking at, because we don't come from formal education to being a wedding photographer, and because a lot of people come to Photography Farm thinking that 2 days intense workshop is going to cover everything that you need to learn. Well, of course we can't cover everything, and I also don't know what you know when you come to me. So looking at things like the basics, so the compositional rules. So this like symmetry was last week's theme in the challenge.
Yeah.
So we're going to do some video work based around basic lighting and composition and what you can achieve. And we'll see. I like the barn. I like the online education because I think there's so much content that if you sit and try and do it in a room, it's just too dry. You can't take it in.
Yeah.
If you had to learn how to edit videos by just sitting in a room watching somebody do it, you can't engage for a whole day of that. So that's why we started the barn in the first place, was to teach people how to edit and to do it in bite-sized little pieces that you follow at home on your own computer, and you can replay as many times as you like. And so there is this huge resource there now of 100 videos of everything from how to sync your cameras with your second shooter or your second camera, to looking after memory cards and online storage and all of the things, to all the way through to your whole editing process. And then I drop in things like, this is how I edit really quickly. I've got a whole workflow called Speedy Workflow in there, showing you kind of little tricks that you can do that just save a hell of a lot of time.
Nice.
Yeah. I mean, we've focused a lot on Farm Shop, but like where can people get more information on the barn?
So it's all still on the site. The original format is on the site. So you just go to the site and you'll see at the top there's a tab called the barn. Couple of weeks' time, we should be hopefully lifting the whole thing across and refreshing it, and it will just be a lot more fun to be in. We'll do some promotional work around the relaunch, and just have a look at it. It's always been the same. It's always cost the same. We started it in 2013, and just the idea was all that content that you find really hard to learn in an in-person class. So I had an email at the weekend from someone who just joined, and she was really new, and she was just like, "Oh, I'm so glad I found this," because it just means setting up your workflow instead of trying to figure it all out on your own, or a little bit of YouTube from here and from there. I mean, I don't know about you, but I look at a lot of other online learning and there's so much waffle. I just need to know the thing.
I feel like when YouTube changed the algorithm to less view count but more the length of your content being more important, then people did start to just waffle on just to get people to listen to more. Oh my goodness. For like tutorial videos, you do just want the short snippets. Like, I don't want to listen to like 10 minutes of you waffling. Just tell me what I need to do now.
I know, exactly. So I've been doing, so Melissa Love, who does the design space, I have been working on, I did her course last week to do Facebook ads. I don't know if you've ever looked at it or ever done it. But like, it's just such a lovely, easy course to follow, because I don't need to know all of it. I know a good lot of it.
Uh-huh.
But I think I was just trying to, I don't know whether it was dynamic ads or what, there was a couple of things that I needed to do. Oh yeah, I had to switch across to the business manager, and I knew it was in there. So it's just like diving in and then diving in maybe 3 or 4. And it's like, they're just concise and they're just easy to follow and they're really relatable as girls, to follow. It's just like, it just doesn't feel intimidating, and it's just bish bash bosh. I can do this, and it's done. And there's so much fluff in our industry, right? Fluff and waffle. We'll start up a duo called Fluff and Waffle.
Fluff and Waffle.
Maybe that's a nickname that we can have, Greg. You're Fluff and Waffle.
Right.
Sorry.
I'm going to call you that from now on.
Oh, God, no. Oh, no, what have I done? Well, thank you very much for talking to us. Before you go, it says on your website, if you ask me, I will tell you the story about how I ended up being on the cover of a Van Morrison album. Can you tell us the story of how you ended up on a Van Morrison album?
Nobody ever asks me. Nobody reads my website. It's a long story. It's a story for the pub. I'll give you the really short version.
Okay.
I was second photographer on the shoot to do his album.
Uh-huh.
And we had, our call time was something like 5 a.m. in Belfast in November. And we turned up and we waited in the freezing cold. So they were doing a video and we were shooting an album. And he turned up at 3:30 in the afternoon.
What?
And this whole set. So everyone, it was the street he was born in. Everybody in the street had removed their cars. They had any kind of modern dressing in the windows removed. So the whole thing looked like the year he was born. Yeah, right. It was all dressed. It took 3 days to create. And they were meant to film a video there. And he turned up at 3:30 instead of 9 in the morning. And he didn't even get out of the car. He just said, "I'm not doing it." And we were all just like, "What? I mean, what? Okay, so what are we doing now?" So he just drove off, and everybody was just absolutely, pulling their hair out. So then he called the producer of the video and said, "Meet me around the corner and just follow me, and we'll go and shoot where I want to shoot." So I think about, 3:45, we pull up in this random street and he gets out of his car and they're shooting a video. So it was just one camera guy, the producer, and me and the main photographer. And bear in mind, this was shooting film because this was a while ago. And we just literally had to walk up and down the street with him and shoot the absolute shit out of it and not get in the background of the video. And that was it. He walked up the road and he walked back down and he got back in the car and that was it. So he just like, what? Is that going to be in focus? Like, who knows? And we all went and got, we were staying in the Europa in Belfast, and we went and got and sat in the hotel bar. And we were all just like, did that actually just happen? So that's the entire video. Mm-hmm. That is all of the content for his album and his single. That's all. We just shot that now. I think we shot 4 rolls of film between the two of us. That's about all we achieved.
Yeah.
And so then everything goes across the record company, and Van chose the pictures, and the one that he approved for the album came back, and we were looking at it in the office, and we were just like, wow, who's that in the background? I was like, that's me. So I'm in the background. It was probably F2, probably shot at F2. So I'm fuzzy as. But that's me. I got like a woolly hat on. I'm changing a roll of film while also taking a picture like this. Like just and there's Van, and there's a guy who was in the JBs beside him, and then there's me in the background. So that's one of my claims of today's fame.
That's brilliant.
Are you in the video as well?
I probably am. A lot of the video ended up being shot with a trade secret with a looky-likey. He has a looky-likey who works with it all the time, who does most of the actual work. Yeah. So, it was mostly that guy.
Oh, my God, that's hilarious.
So,
brilliant.
It was funny. It was funny. A very interesting person. And I'd never been into his music before then. And I was spent the whole day in the freezing cold cursing his name. But we also had to go and shoot his concert.
Right.
And so I was just down the front thinking, come on then, like, and actually he did really blow me away. I was like, he's insanely talented. I don't know if you follow his music or there was no playlist. He just pointed people and they'd start doing their bit. They'll start playing their instrument. He'd just make up what song we're going to sing next, whatever was what he felt like. And he is an insanely talented. Yeah, so I was just like, musician. You're still a dick. Yeah. But you are incredibly talented. That's the short version. Okay. Imagine the long one.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't wait to have the photo farm and get you in the pub. Get the full story.
Yeah, we'll go to the pub. Yeah, sounds good. I'm looking forward to that.
Thanks again. And do you want to just plug the dates? Is there still space available for Farm Shop?
Yes, please. So our Farm Shop is 24th and 25th of March in London. And then we spend the next day all getting on an EasyJet. I love this. I get all these international photographers and put them on an EasyJet up to Glasgow. And so, yes, it's the 28th and 29th in Glasgow.
Cool.
And we're looking forward to it. We do still have space. If you're a photographer or videographer, we'd love to have you there. It's going to be fun. It's 2 days. You don't have to do both days. You pick and choose whatever suits you. So if you want the full-on workshop on day one, or you just want to come and shoot with these guys because you're already running your business really well, then we do that on day 2. And actually, we got free tickets that our sponsors put on some content, and you can come down and see their stands, and there's some really nice companies. And you can get your paws on some Sonys if you want to. Yep. They're going to bring some cameras. So come and give them a go. They'll let you...
Yeah,
I know. They're great. They'll let you go off and shoot with them, and give them a good going over.
Yeah, we'll drop a link to the website if anybody wants to go and check out the tickets. And we're going to be there. We're going to be in Glasgow.
We'll be there. Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Looking forward to seeing you both again, hanging out with Fluff and Waffle.
Oh no! Oh, I'm totally going to regret that.
Okay. All right, kids. Perfect. It was really nice to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The link to Photography Farm is in the show notes, or if you want to go to cinematefilms.co.uk/podcast, you can get the link there. You can find us online at Cinemate Films on Instagram, Facebook, all those places.
Mm-hmm.
And now we'll do a reviewer shout out.
Oh, I forgot about this.
I don't know why I'm getting it on my phone when I've got the laptop right in front of me now.
Greg's having to do all the reading on today's episode since I'm absolutely blind. I look like Stevie Wonder with my dark glasses on. I look really cool.
Let's see, we've got so
really
many.
Cool. Do you think I'll be the Beethoven of cinematography? Beethoven, the deaf musician?
So I'm going to read out Anna M. has left a review.
Thank you,
It
Anna.
says in brackets Origami Fox, who's a stationery company.
Oh, very cool.
And the title is You Had Me at What Are We Drinking?
Ah, yes. As we do most people.
So she wrote, I'm so glad this was recommended to me by several, that's in capitals, people. Just so good. There's a spelling mistake there, but we'll let you off, Anna. It's okay.
It's not. Greg's had eye surgery too.
I don't know if it's an intentional spelling mistakes. It's actually goof. It's so goof. Coffee, yes. And chat. This is funny, genuine, informative, and just great to listen to. Thanks, guys, and can't wait for the next installment, mini or full. Well, your review is on a full episode.
Obviously, it means the world to us when people leave reviews. Obviously, we would encourage people to leave reviews, and you can do that on
it really has to be iTunes, unfortunately. I know there's people listening Spotify and other podcast apps. If you go to the link, cinematefilms.co.uk/podcast, you'll find a link to iTunes. Mm-hmm. If you took that time, we'd be very grateful.
Yeah, and we'd give you a wee shout out. But yeah, thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed the episode.
Until next time,
enjoy your life.